Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our showing of Halloween, 1975, the final selection in our current miniseries Scintillating Movie Scores, directed by John Carpenter with Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasence. Carpenter wrote the screenplay with Deborah Hill and composed the moody, frightening, bare-bones score himself. The film is set on Halloween night, 1963, in the small fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois. It's an independent movie filmed on the tiny budget of $325,000 plus a $20,000 fee for Donald Pleasence's appearance. Halloween's low budget prohibited the hiring of A-list actors, so Carpenter turned to newcomers like 19-year-old Curtis, who was paid only $8,000 for this debut role in a Hollywood feature film. Despite the limited funds, Halloween turned out to be a blockbuster, earning over $70 million at the box office. It was so popular that it spawned a franchise of 13 more films, which provided the backstory of the killer, Michael Myers. It's rated R and is called the granddaddy of slasher movies, so viewers should be aware that some content may be disturbing. But remember, this is Halloween, and we're supposed to have ghosts and goblins and slashings. Many critics credit this movie with being the first in a long line of slasher movies inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, 1960. The movie is considered one of the greatest and most influential horror movies ever made, and it was preserved in the National Film Registry in 2006. Although some critics didn't like Halloween, it did well nonetheless. The LA Times deemed it a well-made but empty and morbid thriller. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times was an often vocal critic of slasher movies, actually praised Halloween on its release. He said the film offered a visceral experience. We aren't seeing the movie, we're having it happen to us. On Rotten Tomatoes, the critical consensus reads, scary, suspenseful, and viscerally thrilling. Halloween sets the standard for modern horror films. Some critics were actually surprised by the film's lack of blood and graphic violence. Carpenter was recruited to work on the film by producers Irwin Yablans and Mustafa Akkad. In exchange for full creative control, he agreed to write, direct, and score it for the paltry sum of $10,000 and 10% of the profits. The screenplay was written in only 10 days, and most of the inspiration behind the plot came from Celtic traditions of Halloween, such as the festival of Samhain, which celebrates the harvest and ushers in the dark part of the year. Several of the street names came from Carpenter's hometown of Bowling Green, Kentucky, and Laurie Strode was the name of one of his old girlfriends. The Dr. Loomis character was named after Sam Loomis in Psycho. He was the boyfriend of Marion Crane, played by none other than Janet Leigh, who just happens to be Curtis's mother. Loomis's description of the young Michael was inspired by Carpenter's college experiences with a real-life mental patient he encountered through a psychology class. The role of the Shape, as it is billed in the movie's end credits, was played by Nick Castle, one of Carpenter's friends from his early days at USC. Carpenter's score set the mood for Halloween with a simple main piano theme, played in an unusual 5/4 time signature, composed and performed by Carpenter, and inspired by both Dario Argento's Suspiria from 1972 and Mike Oldfield's theme in William Friedkin's The Exorcist, 1973. It was composed and recorded in only 3 days, and was so popular that it became recognizable even when heard apart from the film. Although relatively simple and unsophisticated, the music is one of the film's strongest assets. In the closing credits, Carpenter, who was the sole musician for the project, bills himself as the Bowling Green Philharmonic Orchestra. Some non-score songs can be heard in the movie. One of these plays as Laurie steps into Annie's car on her way to babysit Tommy Doyle. Another, Don't Fear the Reaper, by classic rock band Blue Oyster Cult, appears on the car radio as Annie drives Laurie through Haddonfield with Michael in silent pursuit. Filming locations including South Pasadena, Garfield Elementary School in Alhambra, California, and the cemetery at Sierra Madre, California. An abandoned house owned by a local church was used for the Myers home. Plot summary. It's Halloween night, 1963, in the little town of Haddonfield, Illinois. The police are called to 43 Lambkin Lane only to find that 16-year-old Julie Myers has been stabbed to death by her 6-year-old brother Michael. After being confined to a mental institution for 15 years, Michael breaks out on the night before Halloween. No one knows what will happen on October 31st, 1978, except Michael's psychiatrist, Dr. Loomis, who is aware that Michael is headed for Haddonfield. By the time the townsfolk realize that their nemesis has returned, it's too late to lock the doors. Fun facts about the film. Production designer Tommy Lee Wallace created Michael's famous mask. He bought a Captain Kirk mask from a costume shop for $1.98 and modified it, widening the eyes and spray painting the whole thing a bluish white. Many of the actors wore their own clothes. Curtis's $100 wardrobe came from J.C. Penney. The crew had trouble finding pumpkins in the springtime and used fake autumn leaves to decorate the sets. Local families dressed their kids in Halloween costumes for the trick-or-treat scenes. The original screenplay, titled The Babysitter Murders, take place over the space of several days. To save money, Carpenter rewrote it to take place in only one day because they could reduce costs for costumes and locations required. The killer is referred to as the Shape in the script and credits. This is a reference to the Salem witch trials. The word shape was used by the judges in those trials to describe specters or spirits of the accused doing mischief or harming another person. The Myers house was an abandoned, derelict structure, so the crew cleaned it up, moved furniture in, hung wallpaper, and set up water and electricity, all later removed when filming was completed. James Ensor was on the wall of Laurie's bedroom is a poster of a painting by James Ensor, dates 1860 to 1949. Ensor was a Belgian expressionist artist who frequently portrayed humans in grotesque masks. Myers' Ford LTD station wagon was obtained from a car rental agency with Illinois state decals applied to the front doors. It was rented for 2 weeks, and the agency never knew it had been used in a Hollywood movie. When the crew was shooting scenes from Michael's point of view, the 6-year-old actor who played Michael did not appear on set until the last day. So Deborah Hill volunteered to step in as Michael in scenes where his hands are shown. This is why the fingernails are so well manicured and varnished. 5 people actually appeared in the Shape costume: Deborah Hill, Nick Castle, Tony Moran, Tommy Lee Wallace, and James Winburn. Actress and Playboy model Sandy Johnson, who played Julie Myers, complained that the fake blood irritated her skin because it had to be applied to her chest and stomach, then scrubbed off repeatedly between takes. The movie that Tommy and Laurie are watching is The Thing from Another World, 1951. To achieve the shot of Michael shooting his dog, the trainer on set held the dog in his arms and dropped him naturally. This was filmed in slow motion to make it look as though the dog had been killed. Deborah Hill worked for no salary, but took a percentage of the profits. Since the film grossed over $70 million, she made the right choice. While Loomis is fuming at Dr. Wynn about Michael's escape from the cemeterium, there's a glimpse of the real-life place where it was filmed, the La Viña Hospital and Sanitarium in Altadena, California. The name is prominently displayed on the welcome mat as they leave the facility. Dr. Loomis's car is a 1977 BMW 320i G21. Things to look for. Listen for John Carpenter's bare bones, terrifying, famous piano score with its unusual 5/4 rhythm. Jamie Lee Curtis in her Hollywood debut. Note that places and people's names often refer to places and people in the writer's memories. In a crazy credit, Carpenter credits himself for the music as the Bowling Green Philharmonic Orchestra in the closing titles. Curtis's wardrobe from J.C. Penney, fake autumn leaves used to dress the sets, the famous Captain Kirk mask from the Star Trek series, local child's extras in the trick-or-treat scenes, the James Ensor poster in Laurie's bedroom, Deborah Hill's well-groomed hands in place of the 6-year-old actor playing Michael, the Lavinia Hospital's name emblazoned on its Malcolm mat. Now it's time to view Halloween. Sit back, settle down, munch on some candy corn. Please remember that it may take a few minutes for the film to roll. Happy Halloween, everyone. Enjoy.